everybody, I'm here with my April wrap-up, and I have 7 books for you, and I have started 2, so I actually have 9 to show you. But anyways, again, like I mentioned in my March wrap-up, most of these books I don't have on me because I got them from the library, but yeah, I'm still gonna tell you about them. So the first book I read in the month of April was Everything, and I really liked that book. I'm not really a big contemporary person. Like, before this book, I hadn't read a contemporary book in probably a year just because it wasn't really appealing to me. And I think this book kind of brought me back into the contemporary mood, but it wasn't like made me want to read all possible contemporaries. But it was a really quick read, which was a good thing because I was a little bit in a reading slump just because it was getting towards the end of the semester and I just wanted to be done with books, I guess. But yeah, I really loved all of the characters in that book, although the twist in that book, I didn't really see a reason for it, but I think it was a good thing that I didn't really see it coming. But yeah, I gave Everything a 5 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I read Alive by Scott Sigler. And I wanted to love this book just because I'd heard so many good things about it from, I forgot her name already, but it was okay. It wasn't my favorite book, but I still really enjoyed it. I liked most of the characters, and I definitely will be reading Alight, which is the second book, but it just kind of fell flat for me. It wasn't great, but I still enjoyed it, which is why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then I read Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Gray. I was sort of getting into a reading slump while I was reading this book, which is probably why I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, because I'd heard, again, so many good things about it. And I'd heard that her writing style was really descriptive, and I'm not a big fan of that, but I thought that with that it really worked for the story. And I don't know, I liked it, didn't love it, which I feel like is a reoccurring theme in this wrap-up. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I read The Gilded Cage, by Lucinda Gray. Yeah. I did not like this book at all. There were just so many things going on in this book that could have been played out better. Like the ending, the last 100 pages was the most interesting part of the book, and there was just so much stuff crammed into those 100 pages that it could have been so much longer, and I wish it had been. I mean, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I really wanted to know what was happening, and it was a book that made me want to keep reading, but at the same time, it was ridiculous. There were so many things that didn't need to happen in that book. And, yeah. But I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars just because it did keep my attention. It just wasn't great or good in any means. But, I mean, yeah. And then after that, I read Scythe by Neal Shusterman, which I adore. I thought the premise of this book was so interesting, and Scythe Faraday, I loved him, and I loved Scythe Apprentices, and I hated the people that he probably meant for us to hate, and I just adored it, which is why I ended up getting another book by him, which I mentioned in my book haul. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Sorry I keep looking at this. It's because I have all of the books that I read listed here and the ratings I gave them, just because I don't have the physical copies with me, so I won't remember. But yeah. And then I read Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This felt really flat for me, and I was so excited to read it just because I was expecting to love it so much. Because I'd heard so many fantastic things about it, and then I read it and I was just bored. Like, I loved Will. That's the good thing I can say about that. I loved Will, and I loved Jem, I think his name was. I loved it. But then I don't want to say I hated the book because I didn't, but it was just too slow. And it took me way too long, and it put me into a reading slump, and I just didn't want to read anything else. And there was like 5 or 6 days there where I didn't want to read, and I still kind of feel like that. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Although I will be continuing on just because I want to read the Mortal Instruments, because I own City of Bones and City of Ashes. But yeah. Then I read Caraval, which is the last book that I read in the month of April. And I loved this book. I read this in one sitting because it was just so good. And this was definitely my favorite book that I read in the month of April, and I don't think anything would change that. And also, the cover is gorgeous. Oh, I just loved the characters, and I loved just the whole premise of it, the fact that it's kind of like, and also the fact that everything was reversed, where they were only allowed to be out at night, and then everything locked up when it got to the daytime. And I loved the boat. Sorry, I have a really bad time remembering characters, doesn't say. But I love the fact that it was based on sisterhood rather than a relationship, although there was a little bit of a romantic aspect in this book. But it wasn't like what it was all about. I loved Scarlet and Tella, and I hated their father, which I think was the whole point of this book. But yeah, and I'm super excited for the second book to come out so I can read it, and I will pick it up immediately afterwards. But yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And then I was sort of didn't know what book I wanted to read because I was still kind of in a reading slump, even though I really enjoyed Caraval. So I first picked up Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm enjoying it. Well, I wasn't enjoying it that much when I first picked it up, and then I sort of got into Kaz's point of view, and I think he's really the one that grabbed my attention, but then it wasn't really grabbing my attention enough, which I will be finishing this soon. I'm filming this on the 2nd of May, and I'm about 234 pages into it, so I will be finishing it within this week, I believe. And then, because this one wasn't really grabbing my attention, I picked up The Last Forever by Deb Coletti because I wanted to read a contemporary, and it's really short. But I read about 30 pages of it, and it was kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't remember anything that happened in the first 30 pages of this book, other than it was kind of a road trip-y type book. But it just wasn't grabbing my attention, although I do plan on finishing reading this after I finish Six of Crows. So these two will be included in my May wrap-up, although I will have to say that I won't be reading that much in May. You know, I will just include all of this in my May TBR, which again will be up after this video. But yeah, that's all of the books that I have for you today. So, I will see you all in my next video. Bye!